underground nightclub raid in Colorado Springs. Our Denver 7 Investigates team was at the scene early Sunday. According to DEA sources, 17 military members were there, 8 of whom allegedly served as security.
ICE now says 18 of the people arrested during a federal raid on a nightclub in Colorado Springs will be deported. The agency says they arrested 104 people early in the morning of April 27th and that they're all in the country without proper authorization.
The police with a search warrant demanding entry.
It began as a whisper, moving through the law enforcement channels of Colorado. Nightclub no one admitted existed, yet everyone seemed to know about. A place that never appeared on Google Maps, never advertised publicly, and yet somehow packed itself full every weekend with bodies, bass, and cash. A place that existed between the pulse of the city and the shadows beneath it. For months, federal agents tracked the rumors. Fights in the parking lot, vans arriving at 2 a.m., people stumbling out with substances no bar legally sells. Women disappearing through side doors. Men working the line who didn't look like bouncers. They looked like soldiers. And then came the detail that changed everything. 17 active duty military members tied to the club. 8 of them allegedly serving as security. Before we continue, hit that like button to help us beat the YouTube algorithm and to show your support.
ICE says some of the most egregious include a member of a drug distributor for the Sinaloa Cartel, smuggling heroin, assaulting and drugging a victim.
The revelation dropped like a depth charge into the middle of the investigation. What had been a routine illegal nightclub case suddenly snapped into something larger. Something that suggested infiltration, organized crime, and compromised institutions operating right in the heart of Colorado Springs. A city dominated by military bases. A city built on uniforms, discipline, and service. At 2:56 a.m. on Sunday morning, the order finally came through the encrypted channel at the multi-agency command post 3 miles away from the target. More than 300 officers, representing over 10 federal, state, and local agencies, lined their gear, pulled down their visors, chambered rounds, and checked radios. The street they were headed toward, South Academy Boulevard at Airport Road, was still alive with late-night traffic. No one in those cars had any idea they were about to witness one of the largest coordinated nightclub raids in the region's history. At 3 o'clock sharp, the convoy rolled. Black SUVs, tactical vans, marked patrol units racing ahead to block intersections, a helicopter sweeping overhead, its searchlight gliding over rooftops like a silent warning. Inside the last vehicle in the convoy sat a DEA team leader who'd spent 2 decades dismantling drug networks. But even she admitted later that she had never seen the military component hit her case files like this. 17 active duty service members, 8 working the doors, some reportedly wearing tactical belts and earpieces more advanced than the club's own security cameras. That detail alone turned the operation from a routine sweep into a matter of national security. As the convoy approached the scene, the nightclub looked deceptively normal from the outside. Just another concrete-fronted building in a strip of late-night businesses. Neon signage, music bleeding through the walls. A line of people smoking in the cold, but intelligence teams watching from surveillance posts knew better. They had monitored the club for weeks. They'd recorded the endless stream of calls for service, over 170 in the past year, far more than any venue its size should ever produce. They'd logged reports of drug sales happening openly in corners of the dance floor. They'd listened to neighbors complaining of fights erupting nightly, cars getting vandalized, gunshots echoing across the block. But the public had no idea what was coming. At 3:01, the breach command was issued. It happened fast. Tactical units hit the main doors with hydraulic spreaders and battering tools, splintering metal and wood in less than 3 seconds. The music cut abruptly, leaving only screams, shouts, and the thunderous stomp of boots rushing inside. Flashlights sliced through the smoky air. Officers shouted for hands up, for people to get on the ground, for movement to stop. The shock inside the club was instant and total. Hundreds of bodies froze mid-dance. Some tried to run, some tried to hide. Some simply stared ahead, too intoxicated or terrified to react. Within minutes, every exit was blocked, every hallway secured, and every individual ordered to the ground. When the headcount began, even the agents conducting it were stunned. 115 detainees pulled out in waves, hands zip-tied behind them, lined up outside the building as officers moved them into buses, waiting along the blocked-off street. It took nearly an hour just to process the first 40. But the most jarring discovery wasn't the sheer number, it was the uniforms. 17 military members detained, 8 confirmed working security. And that changed everything. Agents located some of the soldiers standing at entry points, controlling who got in, who got searched, and who passed through without checks. Others were found deeper inside, stationed along hallways where prostitution and drug deals were happening just out of sight of the main dance floor. Some carried military-issue gear, others carried civilian pistols they weren't licensed to use off-duty. Their presence had turned the club into a fortress, at least in the eyes of customers. Witnesses later told investigators that the presence of disciplined, stone-faced service members inside the club made the entire operation feel untouchable. If the military is guarding it, one patron said, it must be protected. That illusion evaporated the moment federal agents dragged those same soldiers out in handcuffs. Just after 4:10 a.m., ICE agents began screening detainees for legal status. What they found confirmed what investigators had long suspected. This was not a local crowd. Of the 115 individuals detained, 105 lacked legal status and were held for further review. The list of countries spanned nearly an entire hemisphere: Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico, Cuba, Colombia, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Chile. A crowd pulled from every corner of Latin America, now caught inside a nightclub functioning as a convergence point for international trafficking networks. That wasn't speculation. That was the conclusion federal agents reached after interviewing detainees, reviewing warrants, and matching names to intelligence databases. 2 fugitives were pulled from the crowd, suspects wanted for violent crimes in other states. One attempted to slip out through a back hallway before being intercepted by a state patrol officer who recognized him from a bolo alert. Another tried to ditch a weapon beneath a vending machine, unaware that surveillance teams had been recording every inch of the raid. When agents moved deeper into the club, they discovered what they had feared. Rooms converted into makeshift brothels. Bags of narcotics stashed beneath DJ equipment. A cash-counting area in a hidden storage room protected by 2 armed men. And cell phone videos showing exchanges between traffickers and customers during peak hours. But one detail hit investigators harder than anything else. The club had been operating like a moving target for nearly a year, bouncing locations across Colorado Springs every time the heat increased. Each time, within weeks, crowds returned larger than before. That cycle ended tonight. By sunrise, the street was littered with spent zip ties, broken glass, and discarded glow sticks from the dance floor. The nightclub doors remained open, lights still flashing inside, now illuminating only empty space and evidence markers. Outside, federal officials briefed reporters in tones that left no room for interpretation. This was not a random nightlife raid. This was a takedown of a criminal hub, a gathering point for trafficking, drugs, fugitives, illegal firearms, and an unprecedented crossover with the U.S. military. The question now hanging over the city and the country is simple. How deep does the corruption go? Military investigators arrived within hours to begin questioning the detained service members. Their focus was not simply on what those soldiers were doing inside the club, but on who recruited them, who paid them, and whether this was an isolated breach or part of a larger trend spreading through bases across the region. The DEA has stated publicly that they are not ruling out cartel involvement. Criminal networks with international ties are known to target military personnel for off-the-books security work, leveraging their discipline, training, and access in exchange for money or protection. And if this nightclub was any indication, some of those networks may already be taking root closer to military installations than anyone expected. By the time the detainees were transported to holding centers, investigators made it clear the nightclub was only a symptom. The network behind it, the one capable of mobilizing illegal workers from 9 countries, recruiting soldiers as muscle, harboring fugitives, and operating openly for months, was the real target. And Operation Night Pulse, as agents quietly called the raid, was only the first strike. As one federal commander stated just before leaving the scene, this wasn't about shutting down a club. This was about sending a message to every trafficker, every recruiter, every corrupt gatekeeper: your hiding places are shrinking. For Colorado Springs, a city that prides itself on its military heritage, the raid left the community shaken. Neighbors woke to helicopters, sealed streets, officers everywhere, and news headlines that felt surreal. 17 soldiers arrested in a nightclub sweep, 115 detainees, 300 officers deployed, 9 countries represented, 2 fugitives captured, 1 criminal hub destroyed. But the agents working the case know the truth better than anyone. This is not over. The interrogations will continue. The phones seized from the club will be cracked open. The financial networks behind the operation will be traced, and every lead will be followed until the people who built this underground empire are exposed. Because for the agencies involved, this wasn't about nightlife. It wasn't about immigration enforcement, and it wasn't about embarrassed soldiers. This was about organized crime trying to root itself inside a city built on discipline and service. And federal law enforcement just ripped the roof off their operation.